The moment the Korean Mafia boss leaned in and whispered, "You're not safe here," May realized her first vacation in 20 years had just become something she couldn't manage her way out of. 3 black women, 1 borrowed phone, and a 30-second mistake that put all of them on a list they never signed up for. But here's what May didn't know yet. Leaving that rooftop was only the beginning, because hours later, someone would leave a message on her hotel bathroom mirror in Korean, and she'd finally understand that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a debt, and the only way out was through. If you've ever been the responsible friend, the one who always shows up, you're going to feel this story in your bones. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time you see this story. Meet May 38, Senior Marketing Director, Atlanta. The woman everyone calls when they need something. The one who always shows up. The one who's been single for 3 years, because every man she dates eventually leans, and she holds him up until she disappears. Meet Selin, 35, event planner. Twice divorced. Brilliant at reading rooms, catastrophic at reading men. She validates herself through male attention, and she knows it's a problem she just doesn't know how to stop. And meet Anne, 37, ICU nurse. 12 years of trauma medicine. She's seen more deaths than most people see in a lifetime. She's calm under pressure, emotionally detached. She just wants one quiet vacation where no one needs saving. These 3 women text sporadically. They say, "We should really do this," and mean it, but life keeps happening. This trip? This was supposed to be the reset. But it didn't go as planned. 72 hours after the rooftop. The Bellagio hotel room. Chaos, but not violent chaos. Methodical chaos. Drawers pulled open. Suitcases unzipped. Clothes shifted rather than thrown. Someone had visited their room looking for something specific, and they'd taken their time doing it. On the bathroom mirror, drawn in Selin's own red lipstick, a single Korean character. Pit. Anne stood at the window, arms crossed, calculating exit strategies the way she calculated survival odds in the ICU. Selin sat on the bed, hands shaking, phone in her lap, not texting, not calling, just staring at it like it had betrayed her. May stood in front of the mirror, staring at the character, not understanding it, but understanding exactly what it meant. Someone knew where they were. Someone had been inside their room, and this was a message. May thought her first vacation in 20 years would be about spa dates and old memories, maybe a little too much champagne, maybe some dancing. She didn't know that one borrowed phone call had already shattered everything. She didn't know that her best friend's hunger for validation had just put all 3 of them on a list they never signed up for. And she definitely didn't know that the man who warned her on that rooftop, he was about to become the only reason they'd survive the next 72 hours. But let's go back to where this really started. Before the rooftop, before the warning, before May realized that being the responsible friend wasn't going to save anyone this time. Atlanta, 5 days earlier. May's office, corner desk, dual monitors. A framed award on the wall she stopped noticing 3 years ago. The kind of workspace that looks like success and feels like a very well-decorated cage. Her phone buzzed. Group text. Selin. Vegas. This year. For real this time. Anne. 2 seconds later. I'm not saying no. From Anne? That was basically a standing ovation. May stared at her screen. They'd been talking about this trip for 20 years. Every year. The same conversation. Every year, May had a reason to postpone. Work deadlines, family obligations, the responsible choice. She typed, "Can we talk about this later?" Deleted it, typed, "I don't think I can get away right now." Deleted that too. Her cursor blinked. Waiting. May looked at the framed award on her wall. Senior Marketing Director. She'd worked 15 years for that title, Missed birthdays, skipped vacations, said yes to every late-night revision, every last-minute client call, and she still wasn't happy. She typed 2 words. "I'm in," hit send before she could take it back. The most reckless thing she'd done in years. Here comes the flight to Vegas. 3 women in their late 30s. 3 carry-ons packed with intention. May packed the way she lived efficiently. Neutral colors, comfortable shoes, a backup charger. Because
You're not
someone
safe
always
here.
forgot theirs.
You should leave.
Advil.
Now.
Because someone always needed it. The version of herself who anticipated everyone else's needs before her own. Selin packed like she was auditioning for a role. 6 dresses. 3 pairs of heels she couldn't walk in. A curling iron she'd used twice. The version of herself she hoped would finally feel like enough. Anne packed like she was deploying to a disaster zone. Minimal clothing. Maximum function. First aid kit. Because 12 years in trauma nursing teaches you that preparedness isn't paranoia. It's survival. 3 women. 3 suitcases. 3 completely different ideas of what this trip was supposed to fix. The Bellagio check-in. The lobby that smells like money and fresh flowers. The elevator that opens directly onto their floor. Selin stepped inside first and made a sound that was half shriek, half sob. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The strip glowing in the distance like a promise. King bed. Marble bathroom. The kind of space that reminds you what it feels like to be treated well. Anne walked to the bed. Sat down. Bounced once. Okay, this is acceptable. They laughed. The real kind. Unguarded. The way they used to laugh in college, before life taught them to perform their happiness instead of feel it. For exactly 4 hours, everything was perfect. That night, the casino floor at Caesars, slot machines chiming, dealers calling bets. The particular electricity of a room where everyone believes their luck is about to change. Selin locked eyes with a man across the blackjack table, and she was gone in 4 minutes. May noticed. Anne noticed that May noticed. Neither of them said anything. This too is what 20 years looks like. You see the pattern forming. You don't name it out loud. You just wait. May watched from the bar. David was charming in the engineered way, the kind of charm that feels personal, but plays to a room. Generous with attention, in the specific manner of a man who knows that women who feel unseen will give you anything if you simply look at them. He leaned in close when Selin spoke, laughed at her jokes, touched her arm at exactly the right moments. But there was one flicker, just a second, where his attention cut to another lady across the floor. A glance that wasn't social, wasn't casual. Selin didn't catch it. May did. She filed it away, said nothing, because that's what May always did. Notice everything. Wait for it to become a problem she'd inevitably have to solve. The next day, pure vacation. The strip in daylight, less glamorous, more honest, but still magical in the way only Vegas can be. Brunch at a place Selin found on TikTok. Shopping they couldn't afford but did anyway. The Cirque du Soleil show that made Anne laugh out loud, actual, unguarded joy which Selin immediately photographed like evidence of a miracle. Then, the club. May on the dance floor. Bass in her chest. Lights strobing. Selin spinning beside her. Anne swaying with a drink in hand, almost smiling. You need to understand something here. May hadn't danced in a decade. Not because she couldn't, but because somewhere in the last 10 years, her body had become something functional. Something that carried her from meeting to meeting, desk to car, exhaustion to sleep. But on that dance floor, she remembered. Her body wasn't just a vessel for responsibility. It was hers. Alive, present, real. She felt like herself again. Not the professional self, not the dependable self, just herself. It lasted 20 minutes. Then Selin's phone buzzed. She checked it. Smiled. Texted back. Buzzed again. She smiled wider. May watched her disappear into her screen. watched the glow return to Selen's face, the specific glow that only came when a man was paying attention. Later, back at the hotel room, Selen revealed the invitation. Exclusive rooftop party. Bottle service. Skyline views. David's world. The kind of access you don't get without someone who knows someone. Anne's response was immediate. We don't know this man. Selen's face fell. You said this trip was about being spontaneous. May hesitated. Anne was right. They didn't know David. They didn't know who else would be there. And May had spent enough years reading people to know when something felt engineered, rather than genuine. But May also knew Selen. If they said no, Selen would go alone. She always did. And May had spent 20 years making sure no one got left behind. It was a noble instinct. It was also exhausting. May exhaled. 1 hour. We go, we have a drink, we leave. Anne didn't argue. She just looked at May with an expression that said everything she wouldn't say out loud. This is how it starts. The rooftop party was too beautiful. And here's the thing about beautiful in Las Vegas. There's a kind of beautiful that welcomes you. And there's a kind of beautiful that warns you. This was the second kind. Soft lighting. String lights that looked romantic, but were positioned just dim enough that you couldn't see faces clearly from across the room. Conversations that stopped when someone new walked past, then restarted in lower voices. May felt it the moment they stepped onto that rooftop. Anne felt it seconds later. Anne's trauma nurse brain activated on instinct. Cataloging. Men positioned at the perimeter. Exit routes blocked by bodies that looked casual but weren't. No one here looked like they came to have fun. They looked like they came to work. May leaned close. Do you feel that? Anne nodded once. We're leaving in 1 hour. Agreed. But Selen? Selen was luminous. David had his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd like she belonged there, like she was his. He refilled her champagne before the glass was empty, whispered something in her ear that made her laugh, the kind of laugh that's half genuine joy, half performance for the man making you feel chosen. He made her feel like the only woman on a rooftop full of beautiful women. And Selen, God, Selen, she glowed under that attention the way plants turn toward sunlight. May watched from across the rooftop. Sipping a drink she wasn't tasting, one man wasn't pretending to enjoy himself. Corner table, alone, positioned to see every entrance, every exit, tailored black suit. His eyes moved like security cameras. Methodical. Tracking. He wasn't there to party. He was working. And right now, he was watching David and Selen. Across the rooftop, Selen was mid-sentence when David's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, frowned. Battery died, he said. Smooth. Apologetic. Can I borrow yours real quick? Just need to make one call. Selen didn't hesitate. Of course. She handed it over like it was nothing. Because to her, it was nothing. Just a phone, just a favor, just 30 seconds. But David's phone didn't die. He powered it off in his jacket pocket 30 minutes earlier. Deliberately, because he needed a number that couldn't be traced back to him. And Selen's phone was convenient. And Selen was never going to say no. She handed it over, smiling, trusting. David stepped 3 feet away, dialed. The moment the call connected, his entire posture shifted. Seduction to transaction. Shoulders back. Jaw tight. Voice low and businesslike. 30 seconds, maybe less. The man at the corner table watched every second of it. He knew exactly who David had called. Sung-ho. A courier. A man 2 Korean organized crime factions had been hunting for 3 weeks. A man who was about to make a very fatal mistake by answering that phone, and he knew exactly what this meant. David returned it with a smile, kissed Selen's temple. You're a lifesaver. Selen beamed. May, from across the rooftop, watched the entire exchange. Didn't see the danger, just saw Selin giving again, making herself smaller and easier for a man she'd known less than 48 hours. Off the far side of the rooftop, out of sight, out of earshot, the rival crew moved. They collected Sung-ho quietly the moment he appeared. Professionally. No scene, no struggle. Just two men flanking him and guiding him toward the service elevator, like old friends helping someone who'd had too much to drink. Before they'd walked him 20 feet, they'd pulled his call log. Selin's number, time-stamped 4 minutes ago. They assumed she'd coordinated the meet. David was already gone, slipped out through the back exit, disappeared into the Vegas night like he'd never been there at all. The man at the corner table stood, moved through the crowd, deliberate, focused, toward May. The party noise around her began to muffle, like she'd gone underwater. Everything slowed. She felt him before she saw him. Close, too close. Leaning in from behind her shoulder, his voice was low, controlled, certain. Your friend doesn't know who she's with. May turned, startled, annoyed. Excuse me? He didn't look at her. He was scanning the room. Jaw tight. The man she came with used her phone to call someone dangerous. The wrong people have her number now. Then he looked at her directly. Not like he was hitting on her. Like he was deciding whether she could handle what he was about to say.
You're not safe here. You should leave. Now.
You're not safe here. You should leave. Now. May's first instinct was irritation. Another man telling her what to do. Another stranger thinking he knew better. But her second instinct, the one trained by 20 years of managing rooms, of knowing when someone was performing versus when someone was telling the truth, that instinct recognized something. This man believed what he was saying, and May had learned to trust that instinct. She stood, walked across the rooftop to where Selin and Anne were standing near the railing. Her voice was calm, controlled. We need to go. Selin turned, champagne in hand. We just got here. Now. Selin. Selin's face hardened. The glow vanished, replaced by something sharp and familiar. You're doing it again. You're ruining this. Anne's voice cut through like a scalpel. Flat. Devastatingly true. May doesn't ruin things. You do. 7 words. 20 years of compressed truth. Selin's eyes filled. You've been waiting to say that for years, haven't you? And just like that, on a rooftop in Las Vegas, under string lights and a sky full of stars, 20 years of unspoken resentment cracked wide open. May stood between them, managing, absorbing, trying to smooth it over. Like always. 10 feet away, the man in the black suit watched. He recognized this configuration instantly. One person holding everything together, while everyone else pulled in opposite directions. He'd lived inside that dynamic his entire life. He waited, patient, until the fight exhausted itself into silence. Then he stepped forward. They're already moving on her number. You don't have much time. Anne turned. Who are you? Someone who can help, if you're smart enough to let me. May met his eyes. She didn't trust him, but she believed him. Let's go. Selin followed. If you've ever been the responsible friend, the one who always shows up, always fixes it, always gets everyone home safe, you know exactly what May's thinking right now. She's thinking, how did I let this happen? Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been May? Because what she doesn't know yet is that leaving that rooftop was only the beginning. They went back to the hotel, with the collective decision to treat the rooftop as an overreaction, because the alternative, accepting that it wasn't, felt too big to hold. Selin sulked on the couch, arms crossed, scrolling through her phone without seeing anything. Anne sat by the window, coldly silent, the kind of silence that felt like judgment, which it was. May moved through the suite like she was tidying up someone else's mess, straightening pillows, throwing away room service plates, managing the space because she didn't know how to stop managing. She was exhausted. The bone-deep kind. The kind that comes from spending so long managing other people's emotions that you can't find your own underneath anymore. Before bed, she checked the door. Locked. She checked it again. Told herself she wasn't overreacting. Her hands, shaking slightly as she turned the deadbolt a third time, told a different story. The next morning, they went to the pool. Sun out, panic distant, the way real danger always feels silly in daylight when nothing has happened yet. Selin ordered a mimosa at the poolside bar. Extra orange juice. Light on the champagne. She was trying to be responsible, trying to prove she could behave. That last night was a misunderstanding, an overreaction. She was beginning to relax, beginning to believe this trip was still salvageable. May floated in the shallow end, eyes closed, face to the sun, trying to let the warmth erase the tightness in her chest. Anne sat under an umbrella, reading a thriller she'd downloaded on her Kindle, unbothered. Or at least, performing unbothered well enough that May almost believed it. Then a man bumped into Selin at the bar. "Oh, sorry." He steadied her elbow, smiled like he was flirting, leaned in close. His voice was ice.
We know you called him. Where is he?
"We know you called him. Where is he?" And he was gone before she could respond. Disappeared into the crowd of tourists and cabanas, like he'd never been there at all. Selin stood frozen, drink in hand, ice melting, condensation dripping onto her fingers. I need you to understand what's happening in Selin's body right now. This isn't fear yet. It's something more disorienting. The specific shock of realizing the world you thought you were standing in is not the world you're actually standing in. Like looking down and realizing the ground beneath you was never solid. She walked back to the lounge chairs, sat down slowly, didn't say anything. May opened her eyes. You okay? Selin nodded. Yeah, I'm fine. But her hands were shaking when she picked up her phone. They went back to the room an hour later. Sunburned, quiet, ready for showers and naps, and pretending yesterday didn't happen. Their room door was ajar. Not wide open, just not closed. Like someone had stepped out for ice and forgot to pull it shut. Inside, the room had been searched. Not violently, methodically. Drawers pulled open, clothes shifted but not thrown, suitcases unzipped and almost neatly repacked. Someone had gone through everything, carefully, looking for something specific. They didn't find it, but they needed you to know they'd looked. May stepped inside first, Anne behind her, Selin last, still holding her pool bag like a shield. Anne moved through the suite the way she moved through the ICU after a trauma. Assessing. Cataloging. Already calculating outcomes. Bathroom, she said quietly. May followed. Selin's makeup bag sat open on the counter. Her red lipstick, the Fenty one she'd bought specifically for this trip, was missing. On the mirror, drawn in that same red lipstick, a single Korean character. Pit. Anne saw it first. 12 years of trauma nursing activated instantly. Not panic. Protocol. We need to leave. Not the hotel, the city. Selin's voice was small. What does it say? May pulled out her phone. Hands steady through sheer force of will. Took a photo. Opened Google Translate. Aimed the camera. The translation flickered. Debt. Then consequence. Then what is owed. Vague, imprecise, but the message was clear. They didn't need you to understand the word exactly. They needed you to understand the feeling. We know where you are. Anne started packing, folding clothes the way you fold them when every second counts. Selin sat on the bed, frozen, not moving, not speaking. This was not her style. Selin was motion. Selin was noise. Selin filled rooms with energy even when she was trying to be quiet. But right now, she was paralyzed, which is exactly why it told you everything. May stood in the center of the suite, mind racing, trying to build an exit strategy from a situation she didn't have enough information to map. They couldn't stay here. That much was obvious. But where would they go? Another hotel? The airport? Would that make them safer or just easier to follow? She didn't know, and May hated not knowing. A knock at the door. Calm, patient. 3 measured knocks. Not the knock of someone who thinks they might have the wrong room. All 3 women froze. May moved to the peephole. Looked through. The man from the rooftop. Black suit. Neck tattoo. Standing in the hallway like he'd been expected. She opened the door a crack, chain still latched. "How did you find us?" "I've been watching you since the party." He said it like it was obvious. Like of course he'd been following them. Like that was the reasonable thing to do. May hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to let him in. But he stepped forward anyway, calm, certain. And she found herself unlatching the chain. He walked inside, took in the room, the open drawers, the unmade beds, the mirror. His jaw tightened. Something in his expression shifted. Not surprise, confirmation. He'd hoped they'd be gone before this happened. "You can't stay here," he said, "and you can't leave the city. They're watching the airport, the bus station, the rental car desks. You're on a list." Selin's voice cracked. "What list?" He looked at her directly, not unkindly. Just honest. "The one that says you know where Sung-ho is. They think you coordinated the meet. Until we prove you didn't, you're a liability." Anne stepped forward, arms crossed, nurse voice fully activated. "And why would you help us?" He glanced at May, just for a second. "Because I don't like messes, and this one isn't yours." May picked up her bag, voice steady, decided. "What's your name?" "Minjun Kang. People call me MJ." She slung the bag over her shoulder, met his eyes. "Then let's go." Have you ever had to make a decision with incomplete information? Where every option feels wrong, but doing nothing feels worse? Share your thoughts in the comment. Tell me, what would you have done? MJ drove them through the Las Vegas tourists don't photograph. Past the Strip's long shadow. Past the outlet malls and wedding chapels. Into Chinatown. The buildings here were lower, quieter. Strip malls with hand-painted signs. Restaurants that had been family-owned for 30 years. The kind of neighborhood where people actually lived instead of just visited. He pulled into a parking lot behind a modest Korean barbecue restaurant. Han's Kitchen. Handwritten hours on the door. A light in the back kitchen that looked like it had never fully gone out. Above it, a narrow staircase. Second-floor apartment. MJ unlocked the door. The smell arrived before the light. Garlic. Gochujang. Sesame oil. The particular warmth of a space that had been lived in by people who cooked together. He flipped the switch. 2 bedrooms. Small living room. A kitchen table that seated 4 if everyone was friendly. Photos on every wall. May stopped in the doorway, taking it in. MJ as a child, maybe 7 years old, gap-toothed, smiling at the camera in a way that was unguarded and joyful. The kind of smile the current version of him had carefully erased. A young woman in graduation regalia, cap tilted, holding a diploma. His sister, May guessed, and in the center a man in a chef's apron, standing in what was clearly the kitchen directly below them, laughing at something off camera, flour on his hands, joy in his eyes. His father. This is where you need to understand that MJ had a before, that he wasn't born into this, that somewhere along the way, he'd been someone else, someone lighter. Selin dropped her bag by the door. Anne moved to the window, checking sightlines the way she checked IV drips. Automatic. Footsteps on the stairs. A woman appeared in the doorway. 50s. Hair pulled back, wearing an apron dusted with flour. MJ's mother. MJ introduced the women as old college friends from Atlanta. She looked at each of them. A long, assessing look. The kind mothers give when they're deciding whether to trust their son's judgment. Then she disappeared back downstairs without a word. Anne leaned close to May, voice low. Either he's the best liar I've ever met, or this is the safest room in Las Vegas right now. She paused. I've worked 12 years in trauma. I know what danger looks like. This isn't it. May wanted to believe her. 10 minutes later, footsteps again. MJ's mother returned, this time carrying a tray piled high with food. Pajeon crispy scallion pancakes. Banchan 6 small dishes of kimchi. Pickled radish. Seasoned spinach. Steaming bowls of jjigae stew rich with tofu and vegetables. She set it on the table without asking if anyone was hungry, without waiting for thanks. Just placed it down and turned to leave. May's reflex kicked in, the southern politeness her own mother had drilled into her. Oh, we couldn't possibly. MJ's mother waved her off without turning around. Disappeared back down the stairs. May looked at MJ, confused. For the first time since they'd met him, something in his expression softened, almost amused. In Korean culture, hospitality toward guests isn't a question. You don't ask if someone's hungry. You feed them. Refusing is complicated. Anne was already picking up chopsticks. I've been awake for 20 hours and haven't eaten well since the airport bagel. Complicated isn't my problem right now. They ate. The food was simple, honest, made by someone who cooked out of love rather than performance. The kind of meal that didn't need a Yelp review to prove it mattered. And slowly, so slowly, May almost didn't notice it happening. The crisis receded. Not gone, just distant enough to breathe around. Selin ate quietly. No performance, no chatter, just ate, which was so unlike her that it told May everything. Anne ate methodically, the way she did everything. Efficient, grateful. May ate and felt something loosen in her chest. Some small part of her that had been braced since the rooftop finally exhaled. Late that night, MJ is in the kitchen, making tea. The women in the living room, on the pull-out couch and air mattress MJ's mother had somehow produced without being asked. Selin couldn't sleep. She sat in the dark, phone face down in her lap, not texting, not scrolling, just sitting with the weight of what she'd done. May woke up, saw her silhouette against the window, got up quietly, sat beside her on the couch. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Selin's voice, small in the dark. I'm sorry, I know. You must hate me. May exhaled. I don't hate you, Selin. I'm just tired. Of me. Of this. May gestured vaguely at the room, the situation, the pattern, of being the one who has to fix it. Selin's eyes filled. Then why do you keep doing it? May didn't answer right away. Because she didn't know. Or maybe she did know, and she'd never let herself say it out loud. She kept doing it because being needed felt like being loved. Because managing everyone else's chaos meant she didn't have to face her own. Because fixing things was easier than admitting she was broken too. And this was the first time she'd admitted that. Even to herself. In the kitchen, MJ heard all of it. He didn't comment, didn't intervene, just made tea. Chamomile. The kind his mother kept in the cabinet for nights when sleep felt impossible. He left 2 cups on the counter where they'd find them. May found them 10 minutes later, still warm. Steam rising in the dark kitchen. No note, no explanation, just tea. She picked up both cups, brought one to Selin. They sat together in the quiet, sipping tea a stranger had made them. In an apartment above a Korean restaurant. In a city that had tried to kill them twice in 48 hours. May's inner thoughts settled like sediment in still water. A man who ran with organized crime had a mother, who fed strangers without being asked, had photographs of his father on the wall, made tea for women he barely knew, and left it where they'd find it without expecting thanks. She filed it away, the way she always filed things. Observations, data points, evidence of who people actually were, when they thought no one was keeping score. Sometimes safety doesn't look like what you expect. Sometimes it looks like a stranger's apartment, a mother's cooking, tea left on a counter in the dark. If you've ever had to trust someone you didn't know, because the people you did know couldn't help you, drop a comment, tell me about it, now. May is about to learn that the most dangerous thing isn't the men hunting them. It's realizing that the life she's been living, the responsible one, the manageable one, might have been the cage all along. Past midnight, May stepped onto the small balcony, still in the clothes she'd worn to the pool, running on the particular fuel of a woman who will not fall apart before everyone else is safe. The strip glowed in the distance, smaller from here, less magical, just lights. MJ came out behind her, didn't ask if she wanted company, just sat on the railing like someone who'd balanced on edges his whole life. Handed her a bottle of soju. She took it, drank. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Then MJ spoke, quiet, like he was continuing a conversation they'd been having in their heads for years without knowing it. My father died when I was 23. Heart attack. In the kitchen downstairs, still in his apron. May didn't respond, just listened. The organization came 7 days later. Said the family had obligations. Said I was the only son. He paused. I didn't choose this. I inherited it. May turned to look at him. So why are you still here? He took a drink.
Because I kept telling myself I'd leave when the time was right, but I was the one deciding when right was. So the line just kept moving.
May felt something crack open in her chest. She knew that line. She'd been moving it her whole life. Her mother, who'd worked herself into early retirement at a company that never promoted her past administrative assistant, who died 5 years later, exhausted, having never done a single thing just for herself. May's own 20-year career. Every time she'd said not yet to something she actually wanted. The Vegas trip she'd postponed for 2 decades. The campaign she'd believed in but revised into something safer. The version of herself she kept deferring, always waiting for the right time, never realizing she was the one holding the gate closed. What would you do? May asked. If you could leave? MJ looked at her. Find out who I am when I'm not managing everyone else's expectations. The strip blinked in the distance. A siren wailed somewhere far off. What about you? He asked. May laughed, bitter. I don't even know anymore. Yes, you do. His voice was gentle, certain. You're just afraid it's selfish. The words landed like a diagnosis. Precise, true, devastating. May looked away, blinked fast. He didn't push, just sat there, close enough to feel, far enough to breathe. The deliberate distance of a man who'd never taken more than he was offered. After a long silence, May spoke. I've been the responsible one my whole life. The one who shows up. The one who doesn't make waves. Her voice cracked. And I don't know how to stop. You don't have to stop, MJ said quietly. You just have to stop disappearing. May kissed him first. Not dramatically, not like a movie. Just the way you do something you've thought about. Long enough that thinking becomes more exhausting than doing. MJ paused. Half a second. Checking. Not hesitating. Then he kissed her back. Slow. Deliberate. Like he was memorizing the feel of it. Inside the apartment, Selin got up for water. Moved through the dark kitchen. Saw them through the glass door. She stood there, holding an empty glass, watching her best friend choose herself for the first time in 20 years, and felt something she was not proud of. When May came back inside 10 minutes later, Selin was on the couch, arms crossed, eyes red. So that's what this is about. May froze. What? You and him. Selin's voice shook. Not from fear. From something uglier. Of course you get the fairy tale. Even in my mess. May's jaw tightened. Selin. I screw everything up. I make the bad decisions. I'm the one everyone has to save. Her voice rose. And somehow, you still end up with the hero. Something inside May snapped. 20 years of absorbed consequences. 20 years of managing, smoothing, fixing. 20 years of disappearing so Selin could take up space. It found an exit. Then stop being the mess. The words came out sharper than she meant, louder. Stop choosing men who treat you like a placeholder. Stop making decisions you know are going to blow up, and waiting for me to clean it up. Silence. Selin stared at her, stunned. I thought you understood, she whispered. May's voice broke. I understand that I've been managing your consequences for 20 years, and I'm tired, Selin. I'm so goddamn tired. Anne sat up on the air mattress. She'd been awake the whole time. Her voice carried the tone she used for diagnoses. At the hospital, Anne said quietly. Patients who have someone always running interference for them, always explaining their choices, always smoothing things over, they don't recover as fast. She looked at Selin, then May. Because they never have to face what put them there. Pause. I'm not talking about the hospital anymore. The room went completely still. Anne sat forward.
When you absorb someone else's consequences, when you make yourself the buffer between them and the world, you're not protecting them. You're protecting yourself. From the discomfort of watching them struggle.
She looked directly at May. You've been doing this so long you think it's love, but it's not. It's control dressed up as care. May's eyes filled. Because she knew. She'd always known. Selin stood, face crumpling, walked to the bathroom, slammed the door. May sat on the couch, head in her hands. MJ stood in the balcony doorway, watching, not intervening. He knew what kind of fight this was. The kind that looked like destruction, but was actually surgery. The kind that either killed the friendship or saved it. There was no in between. If you've ever had this fight with a friend you've known for years, the one where all the unspoken resentment finally explodes, you know, it either ends the friendship or it transforms it. Drop a comment and tell me which one you think happens next. Morning. Downstairs, MJ's mother opened the restaurant. The scrape of chairs on tile. The hiss of the grill heating. The particular rhythm of someone who's opened the same door at the same time for 30 years. Garlic hitting hot oil. Sesame. Gochugaru. Life at normal volume 1 floor below. While 4 people sat at a kitchen table, preparing to catch a predator with a phone, and 30 seconds of courage. The fight from last night sat in the air like weather. Heavy. Unavoidable. Selin came out of the bedroom. Eyes swollen. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. No performance. Just Selin. Raw. Real. Terrified. She sat at the table without speaking. MJ set a digital recorder on the table. Small. Old school. The kind that uses a chip instead of cloud storage. He looked at all 3 of them. That recording is the only currency that works in this world. Proof is the only argument both factions accept. He plugged Selin's phone into the speaker, tested the connection, nodded. David won't talk to me. He won't talk to lawyers. He looked at Selin directly. He'll talk to you, because he still thinks you're exactly what he decided you were the night he borrowed your phone. Selin went white. What if he realizes? Then we hang up. MJ's voice was calm. Factual. But if we don't try, you stay on that list. And so do they. He didn't gesture toward May and Anne. He didn't need to. Selin looked at May. Voice small. What if I can't? May met her eyes. Then I'll be right next to you, whatever happens. The four of them sat at the kitchen table. Recorder ready. Phone connected. The hum of the refrigerator is the only sound. Selen's hands shook. Anne sat across from her, arms folded, focused, watching Selen the way she watched patients in the ICU, assessing. Ready. May sat beside Selen, close enough to touch, not touching, just there. MJ leaned against the counter. Whenever you're ready. Selen picked up the phone, stared at David's contact. His name, the photo she'd saved 2 days ago, him smiling at the blackjack table like he'd won something. She dialed. 3 rings. Then his voice. Smooth, warm, practiced. Hey, beautiful. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. Selen's voice came out shaky, not entirely performance. David, something happened. What's wrong? After the party. These men, they came to my hotel. They said I called someone. They trashed my room. A pause, then laughter. Light, dismissive. Babe, you're fine. You're overthinking this. They knew my number, David. How would they know my number? You probably gave it to someone at the party. You were pretty drunk. Selen's jaw tightened. May's hand moved to her shoulder, grounding her. I didn't give it to anyone. Her voice firmed up. But you borrowed my phone. You said yours was dead. For like 2 seconds. Who did you call? Silence. David. Who did you call? He sighed. Annoyed now. It was work stuff, Selen. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Look, I needed to reach someone, and I didn't want it traced back to me. Your phone was convenient. Pause. It wasn't personal. Convenient. Every relationship she'd entered, hoping to finally be worth keeping. All of it. 20 years of hunger. 1 word. So you used me. Jesus, don't be dramatic. His voice hardened. You weren't going to say no anyway. The kitchen went completely silent. 4 people heard it. You weren't going to say no anyway. He'd seen her hunger from across a blackjack table, read it, decided it made her useful, and used it. And he was right. She wouldn't have said no, which was the most devastating part. Not that he used her, that he could see her clearly enough to know exactly how. Selen's voice dropped. Cold. Exact. Nothing left to lose. Are you saying you borrowed my phone without my knowledge, called someone involved in illegal activity, and didn't think I had the right to know? David's tone shifted. Sharp. Alert. Wait, are you recording this? Selen hung up. 5 seconds of silence. MJ stopped the recording, ejected the chip, held it up. Got it. Selen's face collapsed, not into tears, into something larger. Shame, relief, rage, grief, all of it at once. May pulled her in, held her without fixing anything, without managing, just held her. Selen pulled back after a moment, eyes wet, voice hoarse. Why do I keep doing this? Anne leaned forward, no longer clinical, just honest. Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being wanted and being valued are the same thing. She paused. Let it land. They're not. You know the difference now. That's the part that matters. Selen sat back in the chair, staring at her phone on the table. Screen dark. Her inner thought settled like sediment in still water. She had stayed in her own voice, long enough to finish something she started. She didn't know yet what that meant for the rest of her life, but she knew it meant something. For the first time in 20 years, she hadn't disappeared the moment it got hard, hadn't performed her way through, hadn't made herself smaller to avoid confrontation. She'd stayed and finished, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. MJ pocketed the chip. I'll deliver this to both factions. Once they hear it, the file closes. You're clear. May stood. How long? 24 hours, maybe less. Anne crossed her arms. And we're supposed to just wait here? MJ met her eyes. You're supposed to stay alive. Waiting is how you do that. If you've ever had to do something terrifying, not because you were brave, but because the alternative was worse, drop a comment and share your experience. Because Selin just faced the thing she's been running from her whole life. The hunger, the pattern, the voice that says she's not enough unless someone wants her. And for the first time, she heard it from outside herself, which is the only way you ever break free. MJ left with the recording that afternoon. The story stays with the women, because this story has always been theirs. The handoff belongs to a world they were never part of and never need to enter. They waited in the apartment, ate leftover jiggy standing at the counter, didn't bother with bowls, didn't talk much. Anne scrolled through her Kindle, not reading, just staring at the screen. Selin sat by the window, watching the street below, not for danger, just watching. May cleaned the kitchen, because that's what she did when she didn't know what else to do. Washed dishes that were already clean, wiped counters twice. They slept in shifts. Not because they planned to, just because real sleep felt impossible. MJ returned the next morning, different posture, shoulders looser. The specific relief of a man who delivered a conclusion and closed a file. "It's done," he said. "You're clear. You can go home." Selin exhaled. First real breath in days. Anne nodded once. Clean, final, the way she acknowledged discharge orders in the ICU. May looked at him, searching his face for something she didn't name. The drive to the airport. Radio low, a commercial for a furniture store having a President's Day sale. Normal life bleeding back in. No one filled the silence with performance. No forced cheerfulness. No pretending this was fine. Selin sat in the back, watching Vegas recede in the side mirror. The strip getting smaller, less magical, just a city. Anne watched Selin, making sure she was still breathing, still present. May sat in the passenger seat, watching the road. And occasionally, when she thought no one would notice, she looked at MJ's hands on the wheel. Departures at Harry Reid International Airport. The usual chaos. Travelers with rolling suitcases. Families saying goodbye. Uber drivers double parked. Anne got out first. Walked around to May's side. Pulled her into a hug. Tight. Real. "You did good." 3 words. From Anne. Worth 100 from anyone else. Selin got out last. Stood there holding her bag. Looking at May like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Finally, she stepped forward. Held May for a long moment. Whispered something in her ear. It belongs only to them. Then she picked up her bag and walked toward the terminal entrance, leaving May and MJ alone at the curb. Airport noise moved around them. TSA announcements. Car horns. The beep of a shuttle backing up. MJ spoke first. "In another life, don't." May's voice was quiet. Firm. "Don't make it easier by making it smaller." He nodded, respected it. "You have a life," he said. "People who need you. A version of yourself you're still building. So do you." "I know." He looked at her. Really looked at her. "But if I asked you to stay, I'd be doing exactly what we spent 2 nights talking about, asking you to set yourself aside for someone else's life." Pause. "I respect you too much for that." May felt something tighten in her chest. "So what now?" "You go home, live your real life. And if you still feel this, if it's not just adrenaline, or proximity, or the thrill of almost dying," he smiled faintly, "you know where I am. And if I come back, then I'll be here." He didn't kiss her, just held her gaze. 5 seconds that felt longer. Then he got back in the car. Drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. May stood at the curb, watched until the car disappeared into airport traffic. Then she picked up her bag, walked into the terminal, airport lounge. Gate B17. Delta flight to Atlanta boarding in 40 minutes. Selin bought lattes for all 3 of them. Oat milk for Anne. Extra shot for May. The first uncomplicated, generous thing she'd done all trip. They sat in the hard plastic chairs, sipping and staring at nothing. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Selin set down her cup. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this." May looked at her. "I'm sorry I've always acted like I had all the answers." Anne exhaled. "I'm sorry I was ready to leave you both." They sat with it. The honesty, the discomfort, the weight of 20 years finally named out loud. Anne spoke first. "We're different now. We're not the same people we were in college." Pause. "And that's okay." Selin's voice was small. "I don't want to keep being the mess." May met her eyes. "Then don't. But also don't expect us to fix it for you." Selin's eyes filled. "I don't know how to do that." Anne leaned forward. "Neither do we." Her voice softened. "But maybe we figure it out together. As who we actually are, not who we were 20 years ago." The boarding announcement crackled overhead. "Now boarding Group A for Flight 1847 to Atlanta." They gathered their bags. Stood. Walked toward the gate. Still friends. Just honest ones now. On the plane, May took the window seat. Selin middle. Anne aisle. The same configuration they'd sat in on the way to Vegas. But different now. The flight attendant did the safety demonstration. Oxygen masks. Flotation devices. The nearest exit may be behind you. May stared out the window as the plane taxied. Watched Vegas shrink beneath them. The Strip. The desert. The mountains. Selin leaned her head back. Closed her eyes. For the first time in days, her face looked peaceful. Anne pulled out her Kindle. Actually read this time. May's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. "Safe flight. MJ." She stared at it. Didn't respond. Just tucked the phone back in her pocket. Looked out the window. Watched the clouds. Sometimes the ending isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's just 3 women on a plane. Going home. Changed in ways they're still figuring out. If you've ever left somewhere, knowing you're not the same person who arrived, drop a comment and share your experience. Because May's about to learn that going home doesn't mean going back. It just means carrying forward what you learned and deciding finally what to do with it. 6 months later, Atlanta, May sat at her desk. Same office. Same framed award on the wall she'd stopped noticing years ago. But something was different. Her posture, straighter. Her voice, firmer. Conference room. 11 a.m. The weekly marketing meeting she used to dread. Her boss, Derek, sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, waiting. May opened her laptop, pulled up the presentation, the real one, not the safe version she'd revised 3 times to make it more palatable, the one she actually believed in. This campaign targets women over 35 who are tired of being looked down on. She clicked to the next slide. We're not selling them anti-aging. We're selling them permission to take up space. Derek frowned. That's pretty bold. May didn't apologize, didn't backpedal, just waited. 5 seconds of silence. Okay, he said. Let's try it. May closed her laptop, nodded. Great. Her inner thought settled quietly. For 20 years, I made myself smaller to make everyone else comfortable. I revised my ideas before anyone asked. I apologized for taking up space. Not anymore. Selin's phone buzzed on her kitchen counter. Text from Dr. Martinez, her therapist. See you Thursday? Selin stared at it. Thursdays were hard. Therapy meant sitting with discomfort. Meant not performing. Meant facing the pattern instead of running from it. She typed back. I'll be there. Hit send. She's been going for 3 months now. She's shown up 12 times. That's the real work. Not the breakthrough. Just showing up. Memorial Hermann Hospital. End of shift. Anne walked out of the ICU. Scrubs wrinkled. 12-hour shift. 2 codes. 1 death she couldn't prevent. A coworker caught up with her in the hallway. "Hey, drinks tonight?" Anne's first instinct was no. She was exhausted. She wanted her couch, her Kindle, silence. But she hesitated. Normally, she'd say no. Normally, she'd disappear home and resurface on her next shift. This time she said, "Yeah, I'm in." Her coworker looked surprised. "Really?" Anne smiled faintly. "Don't make me change my mind." May's office. 4 p.m. Her phone buzzed. Email notification. Subject line blank. Sender, MJ Kang. May opened it. "There's a Korean restaurant in Atlanta, properly Korean, not strip mall Korean, that my mother says is the best outside of Seoul. I thought you should know it exists. MJ." May read it twice, smiled, typed back, "Is this how Korean mob enforcers make restaurant recommendations?" His response arrived in under a minute. "No. This is how I do it." She put the phone down, smiled wider, didn't answer right away. Not because she was playing a game, but because she was learning to take her time, on her own terms. Her phone buzzed. Group text. "Selin'. Next year somewhere with a beach. For real this time. Anne," 2 seconds later. "I'm not saying no." May smiled, typed, "I'm in." Hit send. Same 2 words she'd typed 6 months ago. But they meant something completely different now. May spent 20 years waiting for the right time. And then she realized, the right time is just the moment you stop waiting for permission. She's not perfect. She's still figuring it out. She still overthinks. She still manages more than she should. But now, she's choosing herself. And that's everything. Thank you for watching May's story. If you've ever been the responsible friend, the one who always shows up, the one who fixes everyone's problems, the one who disappears inside your own kindness, this story was for you. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one thing you've been waiting for permission to do? Like this video if May's journey felt real to you. Subscribe if you want more stories about women who break their own patterns. And turn on notifications. Because the next story, it might be even messier than this one.